Hi, and welcome back to Menopause's Initiation. I'm Dina, and today we're going to do module 2 of this series, and we're going to talk about the Queen. I'm going to move this just a little bit, but we're going to talk about the Queen archetype today. I've got a lot of feedback from module 1, and people are really enjoying the incorporation of archetypes into this, so we'll continue to expand on that. We're also going to do a review of menopause symptoms, take a little bit of a deeper dive into hormones today, and touch on some cognitive behavioral therapy, what it is as a concept, and a couple of things that how we can use it in our day-to-day life. So if you'd like, go ahead and get settled. I like to start off these sessions when I can with a bit of mindfulness and meditation. So the thing I'm going to talk about today, get grounded, kind of get centered, focused, have a moment of peace. I really love this for just the days when you're feeling a little stressed. This is a simple, easy, quick, effective tool that you can use to kind of hijack your central nervous system and bring you back down to earth. So this exercise is called a box breath meditation. And what it is a series of 16 breaths, and you kind of do it in a box pattern. And what I love the most about this is that you can do it anywhere. No one's going to know what you're doing, anywhere, anytime. A great way to just kind of calm down the central nervous system so you can move from a space of just pure reaction into a response. So how we do it is, you don't want to do this laying down because if you're really tired, you might fall asleep. But just settle into your chair, kind of get really kind of cozy in it, and either close your eyes or just kind of lower your gaze to the floor if you're not comfortable closing your eyes. It's okay either way. And what we're going to do is breathe in to the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. In 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Out 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. In 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Out 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. And just allow your breath to return to normal. Open your eyes. How do you feel? So it was really fast. You can slow it down. You can take it quick. If you want a little extra pop in there, on that out breath, you can extend it from a 4 count to a 5 count or 6 count, and that's going to just override your central nervous system a little bit more. If you practice this every day, it's going to become very easy and natural for you to do. It might be a little weird the first time you do it, but quick, easy, simple way to kind of ground and center. So let's move forward and by going back and do a quick review of these symptoms. I like to call it symptoms bingo. How many of these do we have? I'm not going to repeat them all. Just kind of, again, take a quick look through them, identify how many of these symptoms you know you're dealing with or not, either way, but just to kind of keep them front in mind because we're going to talk about menopause a little bit more and hormones and how hormones are going to play into bodies and systems and symptoms. So here we go. Menopause is made up of 3 stages. You've got the perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. 3 phases, 3 stages you're going to go through. First up at bat, we've got perimenopause. So perimenopause is going to be the time before menopause when your body is getting ready to stop having periods. Perimenopause, it's sometimes called the menopausal transition, and women are going to start perimenopause at different ages. So the first indicator is going to be a dip in the hormone progesterone, the earliest signal, okay? And during perimenopause, a woman's ovaries are going to gradually begin to slow the production of those hormones, particularly the progesterone and the estrogen. So again, you might notice signs such as your period becoming irregular, sometimes in your 40s. But some women, again, are going to notice those in their 30s, the mid 30s, the late 30s, and as late as the 50s. You cannot. I didn't have perimenopause really because I took birth control pills. This is a disclosure, a personal confession, until my doctor made me stop. So I went from being okay to kind of erratic real fast. Now, had I not been taking birth control pills for longer than I probably should have, I probably would have had a little easier transition into this space. But it was pretty abrupt and pretty quick, and started about 3 days after my 50th birthday when I went for my checkup. But during perimenopause, estrogen, that main female hormone in your body, is going to rise and fall. Your periods may get longer or shorter. You may skip ovulation, which is going to mean that your ovaries didn't release an egg. I think I had a friend that was saying that she was releasing eggs too frequently and dropping them like the Easter bunny. She used to laugh and say that, but we all have different symptoms. So when you're having these changes in your body, again, you're going to feel those hot flashes, trouble sleeping, mood swings, vaginal dryness, sexual loss of libido, discomfort. Progesterone declines first. So, kind of a little background on progesterone. So, progesterone is produced by the woman's body primarily after ovulation. And so, as perimenopause begins, that ovulation, of course, is going to become a little bit more sporadic, leading to a drop in those progesterone levels. And this initial decline in progesterone can cause some noticeable symptoms before more significant changes happen secondary to those the estrogen dipping. So, common symptoms related to that decrease in progesterone, again, are going to include anxiety and mood swings, sleep disturbances, and insomnia, the 3 a.m. club, right? You're going to start becoming a member of that. Your periods are going to become heavier or longer, maybe a little bit shorter. You may notice some worsening premenstrual syndrome or PMS symptoms. And the role of estrogen, we're going to talk about these together a little bit for a second. So, while the progesterone dip is an early indicator, your estrogen is going to have some up and down erratic fluctuations before, kind of like this, before kind of going into a long, slow decline. So, this early erratic fluctuation of estrogen is also going to be kind of a hallmark feature of perimenopause. And these wild fluctuations is where you're going to get that dramatic rise, that you're going to have those symptoms of hot flashes, right? So what happened on Tuesday? I don't know. It got really hot. Was that a hot flash? I don't know. You're fine for 2 or 3 days, maybe a week, maybe two, and then it happens again. That's going to become those fluctuations. As gradual progression starts, you may notice more consistency with the symptoms that you're feeling. And that's going to be that later stage decline. And also with that later stage decline, that's where you're going to have more of these symptoms like vaginal dryness, vaginal wall thinning, and more discomfort with sex. And then you're going to be at risk for other issues like bone loss and cardiovascular issues. We're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. So menopause is going to be that natural permanent end of menstruation when the ovaries stop producing estrogen and progesterone, and it typically occurs in midlife. Now, we know we can have surgical interventions that cause menopause early, medication, but today we're just going to kind of talk about the natural evolution and progress. So it's a normal part of a woman's life, and you're actually only in menopause 1 month out of your life. And that's going to be diagnosed after 12 consecutive months without a period. So you have menopause once, 1 month, one time. And so the hormonal shifts, we're going to keep talking about the symptoms, keep talking about hot flashes, mood changes, increasing the risk for cardiovascular disease and osteoporosis. Let me think if there's anything else I kind of want to say about this while I'm here. We're just going to kind of continue and move on. Postmenopause refers to the time in a woman's life, then after that month, that indicator of menopause. So again, menopause being officially diagnosed when you've not had a menstrual period for 12 consecutive months. And a quick refresher, you can still have these fun symptoms until your 70s. Not everybody's going to. Some people are going to stop before, but some of you will continue to experience this hot flashes and stuff until your 70s. So I keep kind of talking about these symptoms. Why am I just so on these? It's because what this really is it's a significant biological transition in your life. it holds incredible and important implications for your physical health, your mental health, and your overall well-being for your lifespan. So let's talk about some key health perspectives and as they relate to menopause. So those hormonal changes, menopause leads again to the production or to the decline in production of the hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. That shift is going to send a signal to the body. It's going to have some impacts. Understanding these impacts is going to be important to managing your health, emotional, physical, during this transition. Bone health, I talked about this a little bit before, but estrogen plays a crucial role in maintaining bone density. So decline of estrogen during menopause is going to increase your risk for osteoporosis, and that's going to be that disease that's characterized by weak and brittle bones. So it increases your likelihood of breaking bones when you fall, and we don't want that. So women need to prioritize that bone health through adequate diet, and that's going to be calcium and vitamin D. Exercise, that's going to be load bearing, weight bearing exercises. Okay, getting in the gym, lifting something, and if necessary, medical intervention to prevent or help prevent bone loss. We'll cover that again here in a second. Cardiovascular health. So if you've got some heart problems before menopause, you're really going to want to pay attention to this after menopause, because the risk of cardiovascular disease increases after menopause due to the decline in estrogen. So estrogen has a protective effect on the cardiovascular system of women. So it's vital for you to monitor your heart health and manage those risk factors such as high blood pressure, cholesterol levels, weight, lifestyle choices, the physical activity, the diet. If you're smoking and you're postmenopausal, you probably already know. I'm not going to give you a lecture today, but maybe try to think about some changes related to that. Some more impacts on the mental health front and cognitive function. So many women are going to experience changes in mood and cognitive function during menopause, also due to those hormonal fluctuations. And those symptoms might include anxiety, depression, trouble concentrating. So seeking support systems, having your tribe might be really important to your mental health as you're going through this. The last thing I'm going to talk about, again, is going into that weight management. So fun fact, these hormonal changes, some hormones impact one body system, one body part. Some of them have an interplay. It's really fun once you start breaking it down. But we know that hormonal changes during menopause are going to lead to that, or can lead to that weight gain, especially around the abdomen. And so this shift can be pretty challenging because it kind of creeps up on you and goes back to kind of emphasizing the importance of healthy lifestyle through balanced nutrition, regular exercise, and a management of weight to reduce overall health concerns. Sexual health, I have a whole module about sexual health coming up later, but menopause is most likely going to impact libido and sexual function due to those decreased estrogen levels in your body, and also testosterone. And secondarily, when you have that, you're going to have that vaginal dryness, that discomfort. So it's going to be important for you to discuss that with your healthcare providers. I'm not telling you that you have to put your sex life on the shelf. I'm not telling you you don't have to put your sex life on the shelf. Whatever you want to do as it relates to your sex life is fine. But I do know that this is a big point of angst for both women and men going through this phase of life. So I just want to tell you that there are a lot of options available, medical and natural. So we'll talk about that more later. Regular health screenings, I touched on that before, but menopause is really an important time in your life to prioritize your regular health screenings. If you were like, I haven't been to the doctor in 10 years and I have no plans on it, that's okay. But if you go, you're going to want to have those mammograms, those pelvic exams, and those bone density screenings. Why, Dina, why is it so important? Well, it's important because these screenings can help identify issues early on, right? And the earlier we identify issues, the more chance we have to be okay throughout the lifespan. But it also provides opportunities for preventative care, right? And then the eighth thing that we want to hit on in menopause are those lifestyle modifications that I keep talking about, that healthy lifestyle, regular physical activity, cardio, and weight bearing, whole foods, and adequate hydration. We're going to talk about skin and the impacts of skin, or the impacts of decreased hormones to skin in a little bit. Your whole body needs hydration. And stress management, like yoga, meditation. We'll go into a little bit of that here in a little bit. Sleep's going to be important. We've talked about why. We'll continue to talk about why sleep is so important. And all these things, all these 8 points kind of really tie into your quality of life for the duration of your lifespan. It's important. Support, if you have it, use it. Your support systems are going to be some of your best avenues for navigating this menopause journey more effectively. Let's talk about, we've been talking about hormones. We're going to talk a whole lot more about hormones here in a second. Get ready. Hormones. So, 1 second. I'm going to take a drink. Okay, like I said, we're going to talk a lot about hormones. We're going to talk about a lot, but I'm going to start with a high-level overview today. And when I do this, my sister's coming into my head as I talk. What are normal hormone levels? So we talked kind of about my sister, the nurse, and her being in perimenopause and her lab tests. So what I want to talk about is normal labs versus optimal labs. So in this lab testing, I'm looking at this screen, but kind of most people are going to fit in a range, right? And we're going to call anybody that fits in here normal results, normal range. You're going to have people that don't fit in here, right? You're going to have high abnormal and you're going to have low abnormal. But for most of the population, what you're looking for is this ideal balance in the space of normal. Now, within the space of normal, if you think about it, we might have a bell curve that kind of goes like this, right? Or maybe like this. And you have a low normal, a middle normal, and a high normal. With hormones, you kind of want to be in the space of high normal. So I'm not a doctor, again, I'm not pretending to be one, but if you are like my sister and you go get your labs done and your labs are like, oh, hey, they're normal range, you're fine, but you go home and you're still feeling like shit. This might explain part of the reason why. So you're going to want to be, again, in that middle to high area of normal for optimal functioning, optimal results. I hope this helps. So everybody's different. What your normal is going to be different than someone else, but generally for these hormones, as it relates to your life and menopause, you're going to want to be in the right side or the higher side of that lab value range. Okay, so let's talk about progesterone. So progesterone, I'm going to talk about it first because that's the first hormone that's going to start to impact your life. But we've got pro in gestation and meaning for pregnancy, right? So it's been called the calming hormone. It's a steroid hormone. It's a steroid hormone that plays a crucial role in the menstrual cycle, pregnancy, and the health of both men and women. I'm going to weave some men stuff in here just a little bit too, even though we're talking about menopause, because these hormones are going to affect both people pretty much the same way. So again, typically the first symptoms of perimenopause are going to align with a dip in this hormone, this progesterone. So progesterone, again, regulates the menstrual cycle. After ovulation, the corpus luteum is going to release that progesterone. And this hormone is what causes the uterine lining or the endometrium in the body to thicken and develop blood vessels to prepare for potential pregnancy. So if we think about it, if the egg's not fertilized, the corpus luteum is going to break down, the progesterone level is going to naturally drop, and then that thickened uterine lining is shed during the menstrual period. During pregnancy, the role of progesterone similar changes a little bit, but if the egg is fertilized, that corpus luteum continues to produce progesterone. And this is going to sustain that thick uterine lining and provide nutrients for the developing embryo. After about 8 to 10 weeks, though, the placenta is going to take over production of progesterone for the remainder of your pregnancy. And what that does is it prevents uterine contractions and supports that fetal growth. Progesterone is also important in breast development. It promotes the growth of breast tissue at puberty, and also prepares the breast for the production of milk during pregnancy. Mood and sleep. I'm going to keep talking about this one because it's so important. But progesterone has that calming effect and can aid in sleep, especially during the luteal phase or the second half of that menstrual cycle. So, those fluctuations in progesterone levels can affect mood and can also contribute to that premenstrual syndrome or PMS. Progesterone plays a role in bone density because it helps to deposit new bone tissue and helps to prevent bone loss. So it has a supportive function on that cardiovascular health by helping to regulate that blood pressure, reduce inflammation, improve your lipid profiles, and so that overall kind of can help lower the risk of cardiovascular disease. Supporting brain function, there's a lot of progesterone receptors in the brain, and that may enhance the cognitive function, cognitive memory, and protect against neurodegenerative diseases. Skin, let's talk about skin and progesterone. So, progesterone helps to promote collagen production in the skin. And this is also going to help to reduce skin dryness. And if your skin is nice and plump, then that's going to help reduce the appearance of wrinkles. So, when we take away all of these things, you can kind of see the impacts that you're going to have systemically to your body. I'm going to kind of combine progesterone and estrogen now. Progesterone also opposes estrogen's influence in some areas of the body, like the uterus and the breast. And this kind of helps balance the effects of estrogen during PMS experiences. So they work in tandem to regulate the menstrual cycle. So during the first half of the cycle, estrogen levels are going to rise, and this promotes the thickening of the uterine lining in preparation for potential pregnancy. And after ovulation, those progesterone levels increase. And this rise is essential for stabilizing that endometrial lining, like we talked about before, preventing it from being overly stimulated by estrogen. So, if progesterone levels are insufficient, it can lead to what we call an estrogen dominant state. And this imbalance of estrogen dominance can result in various symptoms and health issues, including, again, those irregular menstrual cycles, heavy periods, mood swings, and the increased risk of certain conditions like endometriosis and hyperplasia. Other symptoms of estrogen dominance can include bloating, breast tenderness, fatigue. So if we start thinking about, the symptoms list that we saw at the beginning, it should start kind of tying all together a little bit. And then again, progesterone helps to have a calming effect on the body and counteract some of these effects of estrogen. So ultimately, the balance between progesterone and estrogen is going to be crucial for overall health, to keep from disruptions and long-term impacts that are negative for your health. So monitoring these hormones, especially during phases of significant life changes in a woman's body or significant changes to a woman's life, those areas that you're really going to kind of want to focus on this is going to be puberty, pregnancy, and then again at menopause. Again, just kind of for the maintenance of overall reproductive health. So, kind of already went over a lot of this that's on this slide. I'm going to go ahead and keep moving forward. Progesterone supports, again, menstrual cycle regulation, pregnancy, helps with PMS, bone health, cardiovascular health, mood and relaxation, brain function, healthy skin. I'm going to move past this slide and let's talk about testosterone. So, I found this fun quote from Sylvester Stallone the other day, and I had to put it in here. But testosterone is so important for a sense of well being when you're older, Sylvester Stallone. Now, it may be funny that I'm putting something from a man into a woman's presentation, but let me tell you, testosterone is so important for a sense of well being when you get older. So, testosterone is the most abundant active hormone in both men and women. And head to toe, testosterone impacts more body systems than any other sex hormone. So it plays several important roles in the lives of females before menopause even. And even though it's often considered a male hormone, we actually really need it. So in women, testosterone is primarily produced in the ovaries and the adrenal glands and some peripheral tissues. But some of the roles of testosterone in the female body is, number one, we're going to talk about sexual function. Testosterone contributes to libido, which is that sexual desire. but it also contributes to arousal. So adequate levels can enhance your overall sexual pleasure and your sexual desire, right? Which leads to satisfaction. Bone health. Testosterone also helps with bone health to maintain bone density by promoting bone growth and preventing bone loss. So this is going to, again, be another hormone that's crucial for reducing the risk of osteoporosis later in life. Muscle strength, it supports muscle mass and muscle strength. Testosterone helps in muscle protein synthesis, which is going to be important for physical endurance and strength. Mood and cognitive function, testosterone also influences mood and cognitive processes. So adequate levels are associated with better mood stability, and can help reduce the risk of depression and anxiety. Kind of an important point, right? So I say this about both men and women. Testosterone is going to be protective against depression and anxiety in both. Fat distribution. It plays a role in the metabolism and the distribution of fat and body composition. So when we lose testosterone, and I think about males predominantly when you see this, but you kind of start to get that big midsection. As women, we kind of start to get that big midsection as well. Testosterone is going to have some impact on that. Cardiovascular health. Testosterone has been shown to be beneficial to the cardiovascular system, including influencing cholesterol levels and blood vessel function. So overall, again, testosterone is going to be essential for various physiological functions in the females, impacting physical and psychological and sexual health prior to menopause. I'm going to take another drink. All right, let's move forward to low testosterone. So first up, I want to talk about depression. Low testosterone can impact depression, anxiety, mood swings, insomnia, difficulty focusing, concentrating, chronic pain. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. Brain fog, joint pain, muscle loss, pain after exercise, belly fat, like we touched on a little bit before, and low sex drive and dysfunction. So it's a powerful brain hormone. There are literally thousands of receptors in our brain that control mood, thinking, mental clarity, and focus. And there's a direct correlation, again, between low testosterone and depression. So, of the three hormones, testosterone is going to play a key role in female health and mental health over the lifespan. Side note, we're seeing testosterone levels, we have the medical spa where we're doing a lot of hormone replacement. But what I'm seeing on labs across the board, and we're seeing this not only here, but nationally, that the testosterone levels are dipping in individuals at younger and younger ages at a rapid rate due to all of the endocrine disruptors in our environment. Also, testosterone is preventative against Alzheimer's. So I told you a minute ago, I talk about testosterone and pain. So the loss of testosterone during menopause can significantly impact pain levels in women. So testosterone, again, plays a role in various bodily functions, including that mood regulation, muscle strength, but also in the modulation of pain. So when those testosterone levels decline, you may experience an increase in the sensitivity to pain, which can be due to those hormonal fluctuations affecting the pain perception and inflammatory responses. So I see this in the pain clinic that we have quite a bit. It's fascinating. I would have never realized this without having experience in pain management. But additionally, lower testosterone levels can contribute to conditions such as joint pain, fibromyalgia, making those existing pain conditions feel more intense. So that hormonal imbalance might also, again, lead to those mood changes. So if you've got pain, you've got hormonal imbalances, odds are probable that you might also have increased anxiety, increased incident of depression, which can then further amplify those perceptions of pain. So ultimately, the impact of testosterone loss during menopause is going to vary across individuals. It's not going to happen for anybody, but if you are in this kind of window where you're seeing your tolerance has changed, it might be why. Also, I'm going to talk about testosterone and opioids. So this was also fascinating to me, and again, without the experience in both the medical spa and the pain management clinic, I don't think I would have ever touched on this, but the second most common cause of sex hormone decline in the pain population, men and women, is going to be opioid administration. So I'm going to do a course on chronic pain soon. And so depending on when you see this presentation, it may or may not be finished. But I just wanted to throw this in here. Again, if you are having menopausal symptoms, you're having pain syndromes, and you maybe are on these opioids, there might be a little bit of interaction happening there as well. Maybe talk to your provider about that. Testosterone and sexuality. So, sexual desire and a satisfying sex life are key components of healthy relationships, no matter the age. Now, I wrote that, and as I say it, I want to say, well, as long as we're consenting adults, right? So, a 2009 study reported over 16 million women over the age of 50 reporting a low sexual desire. And this kind of blew my mind because if you think about it, I'm sitting here in 2025. And if we take all these women that we're talking about in perimenopause, in menopause and postmenopause across the world, I think we would be astounded by the number of women that are having low sexual desire or sexual desire impacts. Because when those testosterone levels dip, whether due to age or birth control pills or any other reason, women are going to suffer from that depression, mood alterations, fatigue, and low to no libido. So we're going to talk about more changes in the body in a few more sessions, but just know if you're like living this right now, I just want you to know more than anything else, you're not alone. You're not alone. Estrogen, we talked about this. I talked about this in the last one, with that kind of joke of estrogen turning witches into princesses. This is true. Estrogen plays a vital role in organ health in both men and women, regulates female sexual development, the menstrual cycle, and plays a vital role in the health of bones, heart, skin, and brain. In women, it promotes the development of breast and pubic hair during puberty and influences fat distribution. Beyond reproduction, it helps maintain bone density, affects cholesterol levels, supports mood, cognitive function, and maintains skin and hair health. Low estrogen, hot flashes and night sweats, a sudden, and that, it's going to be that sudden feeling of intense heat that can cause sweating and make it pretty difficult to sleep. Vaginal dryness leads to discomfort, especially during sex, and can increase susceptibility to infections. And you also might have, the skin and the supporting structures of the vaginal wall impacted by low hormones. So you might be more prone to kind of tearing and things like that. Irregular missed periods, menstrual cycles can become unpredictable and or stop entirely. Thinning skin. So we talked earlier about progesterone and impacts to the skin, and now we're going to talk about estrogen. But estrogen plays a role in maintaining skin health, and its decline can lead to thinner skin. So we have drier skin, and now we have thinner skin. And when you combine it all together, we just sometimes don't have great skin. And part of the reason why is going to be those hormonal changes. Bone weakness over time, low estrogen levels can result in fragile bones, fatigue, feeling drained and having less energy, even after you've had an adequate number of hours of sleep. Mental and emotional symptoms, mood changes, irritability, anxiety, and depression. Trouble focusing and memory issues, brain fog. Some people have, more problems with forgetfulness and concentration than others. All of these things are going to happen on a scale, right? It's kind of like the slots in Vegas. You pull the handle and, who knows what you're going to get. Low sex drive, long-term health risks, osteoporosis again, heart disease. We talked about that. So we're talking a lot about things that we cannot, we don't have any control over. We do to a degree, but all in all, these things are going to happen whether we want them to happen or not. So as we navigate these modules and we continue to build on these concepts, hormones, symptoms, changes to the body, we're going to talk about ways to kind of deal with that with something called cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. But we can also lean into these archetypes and education a little bit more. So I'm going to do education every session. We're going to lean into our inherent gifts and our abilities. And today we're going to start that by talking about one of the great feminine archetypes, the queen. So I titled this slide "The Queen Archetype in Midlife." And I'm going to talk about the queen archetype more than just in midlife. But last time we talked about the mother archetype that can be within us. And I feel like the queen is kind of a natural progression or evolution to talk about as our next archetype up. And why the queen? Because we kind of have to evolve. And the queen is a natural evolution from the mother, or step in alignment with the mother, and you'll understand a little bit more about this as we go forward. So maybe the queen shifts from being the mother into her kids growing up, and now she's coming into her own, and her home is her castle, and she's gonna rule that household or a community project or something similar. So queens are matriarchal rulers in our world. Kind of the queen is also going to run their own empire. You're going to see them predominantly in industries that appeal to women, the media empires, lifestyle empires, cosmetic, fashion, jewelry, any kind of empire. But you're also going to see queens running charity organizations, or organizations that seek to empower women. And I love this about the queen. So queen is really about what we're going to call sovereignty. She's not just about power or status. She has a presence, right? And she is about the cultivation of personal power and confidence. She's okay with healthy boundaries. The queen archetype kind of helps you reframe menopause, not as an ending, but as a powerful new chapter. And if we're talking about this presence and this power and this confidence, it sounds natural, right? So a little going back. So as we talk about archetypes, what we're really talking about is patterns of behavior that exist in all of us across time, across cultures, across whatever. Some of these might resonate with you more than others. Some might not resonate with you at all, and that's okay. It's normal. But at least one or two of these will. And we can find strength when we lean into who we are becoming in midlife. We can also find strength as I talk about the more positive aspects, the more negative aspects of these archetypes, and how we can slip into these sides depending on whether we're under duress, under stress, in a space of trauma reaction, things like that. So really kind of pay attention to the gifts and the challenge of each archetype to identify the patterns that truly exist within your psyche. I'm also going to say this. There's a mystic, Carolyn Myss, who I really adore. And one of the things she says is we start talking about archetypes, and I did this when I first started learning about them. Sometimes we land on something that we want to be, even though we're not that thing. So as I go through this, I want you to kind of really be aware and purposeful as you're identifying with these things. Let's try and stay in the lane of who we really are and not the thing that we really want to be. So it could be on the top that you think you're a queen because you're identifying with some of them, but if you're not identifying with all these patterns, I'm going to ask you to dig a little bit deeper, because this may or may not be one of those dominant behavioral patterns within you. And now it's said, depending on who the theorist is or who's kind of slicing this up or talking about it, that there's between 6 and 12 or 24 or 48 main archetypal patterns within us over our lifetime. You're gonna have moments where one is more dominant than another, but by and large, you're going to have a few dominant patterns within you that don't change, that have to be expressed over the course of your lifetime. So again, you can have elements of the mother and the queen and another pattern, or not. Anyway, I said it to say this. So what do you think about when I say the word queen, when the word queen comes up? This is going to be an archetype of feminine power, and the archetypes that we're going to talk about through this, they're all archetypes of feminine power, but the queen has integrated kind of these outcast parts of the woman in need of relationship to a degree. I kind of think of the progression like this. So we got the maiden, right? And she might be the damsel in distress, right? Looking for that knight in shining armor. As she matures, she may be both the queen and the mother at the same time. And maybe the knight has evolved into a prince. Maybe he hasn't, who knows? But she's going to kind of go through this evolution. So she's found sovereignty over her inner kingdom and herself. And she's also going to oversee that external kingdom, which might be her home, which might secondarily then be her castle, which is also her sanctuary, right? So a lot of women in corporate positions are going to identify with the queen archetype. And the queen before menopause, she's kind of a work in progress. But the seeds of her sovereignty are there, but she's kind of before menopause laying the foundation for the woman that she's becoming. She's still finding her footing, finding her strength, kind of building quietly beneath the surface. The queen's power is a little bit more quiet, a little bit more subdued. It's definitely there, but she navigates a little easier on the playing field. So post-menopause, it's also time for wisdom, and you're going to see that in many of these archetypes as well. But the menopausal queen has seen enough in life to know what really kind of matters and what doesn't. So she's always going to be, when she's, in a good place, she's going to be building you up. She's going to be supporting you. She's going to tell you, stop worrying about the gray hair. Start planning that vacation. She's going to be the colleague that's kind of calmly handling a crisis, because no matter what comes up, the queen, she's got that grace and she's able to handle it. She's been through worse. It's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. That is the queen. You feel good and you feel like you can do it in her presence. She's faced with unexpected challenges, and she's got it, right? She's that mother plus that sometimes, when I am in not a great place or in a place of anxiety, I'm like, will you be my mom for 5 minutes? Because I'm looking for that woman that can just, it's fine, you got this, right? So famous people that we see the queen archetype in is going to be Queen Elizabeth, of course, Beyonce, Oprah, and Michelle Obama. But a snapshot, again, her deepest desire is going to be personal power. And her goal is she's going to achieve greatness. And her deepest fear is going to be losing control. So she's not shy. She's going to be able to use her charm to get what she wants, but she also empowers others by leading through example. So the queen in relationship, at her most basic, the queen upholds the sanctity and integrity of marriage. The queen represents our desire to be a wife, to have, our king, our castle, our kingdom. So this is the culmination of personal power. She's okay with healthy boundaries. And like I said before, she kind of also lifts everyone in her kingdom up. And she's expressive and fun to be around. And her queenly qualities of commitment, consistency, self-possession, and loyalty make it so that she functions really well as part of a pair. And the wife is kind of on an archetypal pattern, the co-ruler of a household. And her traditional domain was kind of what we would call that Ministry of Interior Affairs. So the queen is often found among first ladies and other women who can hold kind of this pressure and responsibility of power in tandem with her partner. She's co-leading, doing it very well with grace and ease. Now, the fate of the queen, of the wife, from an archetypal perspective, is that eventually she is going to experience widowhood. And this is kind of a fascinating thing. I'm gonna go through this. I kind of debated whether I would or not put it in this, but the wife eventually experienced this widowhood, and that doesn't necessarily mean a physical death of her husband, but wife and widowhood are inseparable, because even if the husband doesn't actually die, there's an element of experience of this many times within the queen and relationships, due to the function that the wife plays on a man's kind of on a more subtle level. So the queen is loyal and committed, and she's almost magical in her ability to see and cultivate a man's potential. So unlike any other archetype, she can help shape the hopes and the dreams of a man into reality. She can help him make it all come true. And at her core, she represents our ability for conscious leadership, and that is amazing. So she leads in a way that sustains life, creativity, and conservation. But because of this, she needs to be aware as she's providing him with all that social respect, the children, that general support, in that aspect, she's almost functioning like a mother. And these things could be and are equated sometimes in myth and literature as, that nourishing milk. And so she sustains him through her milk and gives him power, almost like a godlike power in this selflessness and cultivation of his desires and his needs. So again, you're going to see this in stories and myth, and what happens is that eventually the queen kind of devours her lover, and then she becomes cold. I think I don't remember the story, but you see her kind of descend into the underworld and get his parts and kind of come back up, and he's reborn, but he's reborn effectively as her son. So you might see this in women who put their husband above their children, because her maternal tendencies are actually kind of directed towards her husband. Now, somebody might be waiting, and I realize this is not always the case, but sometimes this is happening, and kind of this is that unconscious underlying undercurrent of what's kind of going on without either party knowing it. So I don't say that, none of this to say that the queen can't be an amazing mother or wife or lover. But as with anything, we need to kind of be aware of our potential, because as women, we have this unique ability. We are uniquely qualified to birth things in and to create. But our ability for destruction matches our ability for creation, right? So when we talk about females and our feminine energy and in our feminine ways and our potential, we only have the ability to create to the extent that we can destroy. So this is kind of really why we're getting the meat and potatoes, why I really want to bring these archetypes into this conversation as we talk about navigating emotions and life changes and hormonal fluctuations, because we can just swing on a pendulum consciously and unconsciously in different ways. But once we start to name these things and become aware of who we are in the world and how we operate, it becomes a little easier for us to kind of be balanced. So similar to a queen on a chessboard, this woman's going to be able to navigate challenges with a soft leadership style effortlessly. The gifts of the mother, again, when she's at her best, she's nurturing and supportive. She's caring, she's devoted, she's providing guidance, she's fostering community and encouraging growth in others. She's got a confident authority, embodying self-confidence and possessing a strong sense of authority. So I think I read one time, she's a woman in the coffee shop that looks, totally untouchable and a little bit mean, but when she sees you, she smiles and she compliments you on your outfit, and you just feel so much better. So this confidence is coming from a place of self-awareness and inner strength. And she's wise and intuitive. So the queen is often portrayed as wise and intuitive. She's drawing on those life experiences to make thoughtful and informed decisions because she can see the bigger picture and she understands what's best for her realm. And that's amazing. She's protective and just. She's going to seek the well-beings of her subjects and create a just environment that's fair and equitable and make sure that everyone's treated with respect. So with that, she's empowering. She's recognizing the potentials of others and helping them grow into their own strength, encouraging collaboration and shared leadership. Now let's talk about the shadow. And we talked about the shadow before, and I'm going to continue to bring this up because, like I said, when we move into this space because of trauma or stress or whatever, we can take on some pretty challenging behaviors. So the shadow of an archetype is kind of your dark and acknowledged side, and it's going to be the traits and impulses that you're always going to have, but you're generally going to want to kind of push down. We don't really want to show that face to the world. Even though we talk about the shadow and people typically think about, oh, it's all these bad things. the shadow can also have positive effects, right? So I like to think of it just as a flip side of the coin. Neither necessarily positive nor negative. It's just we flipped faces like Jekyll and Hyde, but hopefully not as destructive, right? So it's that part of your personality that you hide because it conflicts with your public image or morals. And there are several ways for the shadow aspect of our personality to emerge. And I'm going to focus on stress because we're covering menopause and emotion. So, in the simple terms, stress makes the shadow aspect of an archetype emerge because stress actually weakens that conscious mind's control. I kind of saw that a little bit, right? Even with the hormones dipping, but stress can impact this. And this is going to allow those repressed thoughts, those feelings, and those impulses to surface. And when I say that, I think I'm really talking about reaction, right? Have you ever just been talking to somebody and something happens and all of a sudden you just flip and you're like 20 minutes later, what the hell was that? Well, that is that shadow aspect. So when your energy is depleted, those less socially acceptable or less acceptable parts of yourself, your personality, which are going to typically keep below the surface, can bust out without the usual filters or the mask that you have. So, in a broken down kind of concept, it's just an unconscious pattern, thought of behavior. That's what an archetype is. The roles we play, like the hero or the caregiver, the perfectionist, and each role has, again, those positive and negative aspects. Um, I think that's all I'm going to say about this for right now. But let me think for just a second. No, yeah. All right, when we slip into the shadow. So let's talk about the less desirable traits that we can have when we're not at our best. So, slipping in the shadow, the challenges of the queen: controlling, afraid of being vulnerable, jealous and competitive. She isolates and she can be manipulative and deceitful. So, maybe picture Joan Crawford in Mommy Dearest. I hate doing this, but that's the most popular kind of thing I can come up with off my head right now. But again, controlling and overbearing. So in her shadow, she's going to identify with the role. The queen is going to become controlling, domineering, imposing her will on others, and stifling their autonomy. Just the flip of that when she's in a good place, right? So what that can do is it can lead to a lack of trust and resentment from those she seeks to lead. We have something called the Ice Queen. This can also manifest. And this is going to be a woman who appears really remarkably self composed and assured and completely in control. She's going to exude confidence at the expense of emotional availability. So she might seem aloof or distant or unapproachable, which can be mistaken for high standards and independence. However, below this, and this is typically going to become because of like a trauma or something like that. This below this facade, there's a guarded heart who's incredibly fiercely protected by walls that are built up for years due to trauma. And so one of the ways I might get a little slack for this, but one of the ways that this archetype is being commonly portrayed through social media right now is this popularized notion of the high value woman. We're seeing that a lot, and that's not to say I don't want women to be high value. I want every woman, and I believe every woman is high value. But as you're seeing these representations of the high value woman, kind of use a little bit of discernment. Is she showing a little bit of vulnerability? If there's no vulnerability there, then she may be in the shadow. Uh, if this resonates with you a little bit, it's neither good nor bad, just something to kind of keep in mind and be aware of, because you may be kind of moving through life in this space that you're not maximizing your fullest potential because of that. So when she goes in the shadow, also, she's going to have that fear of vulnerability, which is the flip of what makes the queen the queen. So the shadow's queen may struggle with vulnerability, feeling that showing weakness is going to diminish her power. And this fear can create barriers in a relationship and kind of hinder those authentic connections. The same with the ice queen. She becomes jealous and competitive. So instead of fostering community, she's going to create division rather than unity. She may self isolate emotionally or physically, and carry the weight and the responsibility alone, and that can kind of lead to feelings of despair and loneliness. The queen may become manipulative and deceitful with her colleagues at her home. She may resort to manipulation and deceit in order to maintain power or achieve her goals. And when you slip into that, then what you're really talking about is compromising your integrity, her integrity, and damaging relationships over the long run. At her kind of worst, like, right, mommy dearest wasn't enough, but when she experiences personal pain or a personal slight, she can become terribly vindictive. And just like mommy dearest, that anger is going to turn into an uncontrollable rage. So in the shadow, the queen might lose her identity, her personal boundaries, which are so important to the amazing being that she is, and then her sexual agency. So you may see sex kind of becoming a duty that you have to perform rather than a pleasure. She may become jealous of any woman that she sees as a threat to her kingdom or her relationship. But she also may stay in troubled relationships just for the sake of the commitment and that outside kind of power and influence. So menopause can be frustrating and even isolating at times. But if we kind of lean into the queen and her positive aspects, she can kind of help you reframe it, kind of not so much as an ending, but as a strong beginning to a new chapter. And also, it's a chance to kind of redefine yourself on your own terms as the ruler of your kingdom, whatever that might be, whatever that might look like. So, how do we kind of lean into that queen archetype in midlife? It really comes from knowing your worth, right? Um, True empowerment for the women, for the queen especially, is going to lie not in suppressing that vulnerability, but embracing it. That vulnerability is going to become a strength. In that acknowledgement of being vulnerable, we kind of have to say, okay, well, one of the first things I need to do is to prioritize myself, right? So if your instinct naturally is to put everybody else first and yourself last, it's kind of time, queen, to flip that script. You cannot rule effectively if you're burnout, right? You just can't. And so that really means setting boundaries and sticking to them, right? And so whether it's learning to say no or carving out time for your passions, not just your exercise and your physical health, but your passions, because you can't lose those in midlife either. Who are we without our passions? So boundaries might become your best friend in there too. Lean into that inner court that you have. It's surround yourself with people who are going to love you and lift you up even when you're not at your best. So queens know the value of a loyal inner circle. And I'm gonna say the last thing here, celebrate your wisdom. That knowing that you've earned every wrinkle, every gray hair, every laugh line. For the queen, it is a badge of honor. I'm not saying you can't color your hair, but you've earned every bit of that. And those are your badges, and you can wear them. Those are your medals. As we talked about that, I'm going to take a breath and we're going to talk about cognitive behavioral therapy for managing symptoms. And I picked cognitive behavioral therapy as the kind of intervention to use throughout this because it's evidence based, it's science backed, especially in the space of menopause. But secondarily, if I'm going to spend the time doing this and you're going to spend the time doing this, I want you to have tools in your toolbox that are going to be effective not only for menopause, but for other avenues of your life. And so cognitive behavioral therapy is well researched and recommended for non-hormonal treatment for various menopause symptoms. It's empowering because they're pretty easy to learn and you can use them anywhere, on anyone at any time. And you can apply these skills, again, like I said, to different challenges. So it's versatile. And you can also use them in a complementary way. So if you are on hormones or something else, no matter what you're doing, you can still use these. I think you're going to like them. Some of it might feel weird at first, but everything's weird at first, right? Riding a bike, having sex, everything is weird at first. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Okay. So everyone can benefit from some CBT. The first thing we're going to talk about as we go into cognitive behavioral therapy is handy dandy mindfulness. And mindfulness is really just cultivating awareness. And some of you may be tuning out. Dina, I can't do this. Okay, you can. You can do this. Mindfulness is simple. I'm going to break it down to you in simple, easy, effective ways to do this to improve your life. It's a gentle, non-judgmental awareness. When I say this, I'm talking about gentle. Be gentle with yourself and don't judge yourself. It's really just monotasking. It's doing one thing at a time. So my next bullet point is making dinner. So I like to use the example of the Thanksgiving meal. Now, I don't ever cook, but when I do cook, I either make spaghetti or, oh my God, what am I making tonight? Chicken noodle soup. So when you're making your stuff and you got your carrots and you peeled them and you're kind of cutting them and you kind of slip into this rhythm. I'm making a meal, I'm cutting the carrots. I can feel myself come into my body a little bit. I'm relaxing. This is a little enjoyable. What's happened is you have slipped in the space through doing one thing at a time, focusing on the carrot of mindfulness. Okay, that's it. It's just one thing at a time. You also might slip into the space a little bit while you're driving. You leave point A, you get to point B, you're like, oh my God, how did I get here? No time has elapsed. It's a different brain pattern, but kind of a similar, you're just in this zone. So the easiest way to start with mindfulness is kind of like we did at the beginning, is through your breath. It is the art, not the R, of becoming aware. And going back to this, why is it so important? Why are you going to keep harping on this, Dina? It's because it helps you kind of get a gap in the space between whether you react blindly or you respond. So if you do this 10, 20 minutes a day, every day for a while, you're going to see when you get triggered, a little hesitation in your central nervous system. And that gives you just enough breathing room to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to fly off the handle because it's justified and I need it. Or I'm going to take this other path and I'm going to thoughtfully take action or words. So again, it's just mindfulness, just doing one thing at a time. When you do this, you're going to increase the neural synapses in your brain. If you do it at least 10 minutes a day for every day, ideally you're going to want to do it about 20 minutes, but your brain wave patterns are going to begin to shift and your body is going to decrease accumulated stress. There's actually only 3 ways to discharge stress. It's going to be sleep, exercise, and meditation, which is mindfulness. So a little ditty here. Mindfulness practice is most strongly associated with the alpha brainwave state of 8 to 13 hertz, which is characterized by a relaxed, get alert, awareness through deeper states of mindfulness. Can also include the theta brainwave state, which is that 4 to 8 hertz. So these brainwave patterns are really a physiological signature of meditation, which again is going to tie back to that reduction and discharge of stress, which is going to increase calm, improve your focus, and you want that, especially in menopause while you're going through all this stuff, right? Okay. So mindfulness in menopause, again, for many women, changes can feel overwhelming. Over time, I'm going to say it again. I know you hate it, but these practices can help you feel more grounded, present, and in control of your thoughts and emotions. And it can also help with your cognitive ability, I swear. So what else do I want to say about this? Just the research. There's a lot of research behind it. The Journal of North American Menopause Society found that mindfulness-based stress reduction programs can lead to significant improvements in mood and the quality of life, because that's really what I'm after in these slides, is improving quality of life for menopausal women. It can also improve sleep, which is often disturbed or disrupted during menopause, like we talked about. And techniques like body scans or mindful breathing can help calm that mind and prepare the body for rest. Now, when I learned to meditate, I'm actually a certified meditation instructor, but I say that to say this. My instructor worked for Deepak Chopra. She was his lead educator for a while. And when she taught us, what she said was, the way you want to do this, if you're going to meditate every day, you're going to want to rise in the morning, pee, and meditate. And just get into that habit. You can make your mindfulness or meditation experience as complicated as you want, or you can make it as simple as you want. If you meditate later in the day, like right before bed, you're going to give your body a pop of energy and you might have difficulty sleeping. So I find for me, it's best to do it either right in the morning, or if my day gets kind of crazy, I'll do it after lunch. You don't want to do it laying down, because if you're tired, your body's going to give you what you need. And if you're tired, you're going to need sleep more than meditation. So I just, I kind of say just sit up and do it and kind of get in the zone and get used to it. If you want to set up a great space and dedicate it to your practice, I've seen some amazing spots. Every way you do it is good, as long as you're doing it. We've got 3 exercises we can talk about over here. That mindful breathing that I did before. Again, you're going to want to sit and not lay down, but let me show you something that's really simple. We're going to do this again next week anyway, but just kind of find your breath. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you do that, you're going to pay attention to the breath. You're going to pay attention to the breath coming in your nose. Kind of feel the cool air. Kind of feel the warm air going out. And if your mind starts wandering, and everybody's minds wander, just bring it back to breath. So when we talked about non-judgmental awareness, that's really what we're talking about. If you're trying this and your mind wanders, you're like, oh no, I'm so bad. No, everybody does it. Just, okay, great. I notice it. Bring it back to the breath. So you can start with like 1 or 2 minutes of that and move up to 10 or 20. Again, if your mind wanders, just bring it back. So this benefit of just a simple breath is going to help calm the nervous system, reduce stress, and increase focus. Another popular thing that people do is called mindful eating, and people will either take a raisin or a chocolate chip or a strawberry, just a piece of food, and you kind of hold it and you look at it and you smell it and you admire the texture and the color and whatever might happen. And then you're going to just kind of mindfully put it in your mouth. And before you start chewing, you're just going to feel it, the texture, the taste, any secondary smells, and slowly chew it. Kind of almost loving on it, right? Paying attention to the taste and the sensations. And the benefit of that, slower eating and mindful eating, it kind of enhances your awareness of your eating habits, but it also helps prevent overeating and encourages a greater appreciation for your food. Body scan meditation. So I talked to you just a second ago, a meditation with menopause. It is mindful, so it's going to reduce that stress, improve sleep, boost mood, and improve that mental clarity. But none of these things directly are going to kind of cure those physical symptoms of hot flashes and stuff, because those are happening due to hormonal changes in your body, and no amount of mindfulness or meditation is going to change that. But calming the nervous system is really important, right? When we talked about pain and pain receptors and all these things, so your nervous system helps, regulating that is going to help kind of balance you out, right? Because it helps lower that stress hormone called cortisol. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But that cortisol and that tension can exacerbate the symptoms or hormonal changes. So I have this thing we can do called a mindful body scan. I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now. I might do it later. But basically, another thing to do to kind of relax your body is just start at the top of your head. Don't get attached to any stories or whatever. And just kind of, okay, I'm going to relax the top of my head. And now I'm going to move down and relax, my temples and my eyes and my jaw, which my jaw is always tight, my ears, my mouth, throat, neck. Move on down the body to your toes. Again, some people do it lying down. I don't ever recommend that because I always fall asleep. And I realize that you are not me, so maybe you can do it. But when you're beginning these things, I encourage you to try to do it in a chair, but just head to toe. I'm relaxing my body intentionally. I'm going to take 5 minutes. You will be amazed what you feel like before versus after, especially if you're under tension or duress or stress. So this is wrapping up our second module. I think I'm going to record our third module tomorrow. I'm kind of excited about that. We're going to talk about the sage and emotions, but let's talk about handy dandy homework. So, I like homework, like looking ahead. We're going to do a little reflection. So I'd like it if we step into the queen, whether we're queens or not, and find a funny or empowering meme or picture or short video about menopause and post it in that Facebook group so we can kind of all see it. I have uploaded several documents into module 2. I'd like it if you would complete at least the queen's reflection for the future you. Okay, you can share with me or any reflections of it on the Facebook page at all, but I really like you to complete this queen's reflection for future you so you can kind of look back. I have uploaded, like I said, several copies of things. I know there's a menopause checklist and symptoms tracker in there. If you want to start tracking some of your symptoms, go ahead and do it. And the reason why is when you're going to your doctor's office and you're like, I'm not sleeping, well, that's not as impactful as a subjective statement as an objective statement. Like, I've had disruptive sleep. I've had disrupted sleep 22 out of 30 days this month. Okay. So we just kind of take that example into why it's important to begin tracking your symptoms. But also, if you're like, God, I'm having disrupted sleep every day, and that's why I'm so cranky, but you start tracking it and you're like, well, I only had 8 days this month. There might be something else going on with you, right? Not good, not bad, not indifferent. I just like objective data, and that comes from the medical side of my house, which is hilarious because I'm in psychotherapy and everything is subjective. But that's a completely different topic for a completely different day. But I say that to say I understand both sides, kind of that subjective and that objective. And when you're having conversations with people, you really want to have objective data in front of you. Anyway, I think I've rambled long enough. We're sitting at about an hour and 10 minutes. And I hope you got something out of this. I hope you join me for module 3. And more important, I hope you have a great day today. Bye.